delegates. Today we will be meeting young people in ASEAN who are championing responses and innovation during a time of uncertainty and disruption in our panel discussion. Under the topic, the vital roles of millennials and Gen Zs in a post-pandemic recovery, the next hour will be moderated by Mr. Timothy Loh, alumni of the ASEAN Youth Fellowship Program from Singapore and Chief Operating Officer at the Halogen Foundation. The session today will also be live streamed, so in addition to the 68 participants joining us in this room, we'll also be joined by many more around the world. Now, if I can pass the floor to Mr. Loh, please.
Welcome to our first panel discussion on youth and millennials and Gen Z in the post-pandemic recovery. My name is Tim. I come from Singapore. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Halogen Foundation. We are a leadership and entrepreneurship education charity, making quality character education accessible and available to all youth, regardless of their background or availability or accessibility. Joining me at this panel are some illustrious panelists, youth panelists, people who are young and making amazing change and doing some amazing things with the initiatives and organizations that they've been part of. Before I start the discussion proper, there is a quick Mentimeter which I will be hosting up that I would like all of you to participate in. There are just some questions that we're going to ask you to share with us. Because this is being live streamed up on the YouTube channel. This is also a panel that's going out to all public. So we want to get a sense of who's attending, who's joining us today. So if it's okay, let's have the first Mentimeter question, please. So this is the first one. If you can join us at menti.com and key in that code, we're just simply going to ask you what age range do you belong to? We're going to give about a minute more, a few more seconds. I see most of us are within the 15-25 age range, which is wonderful. This is actually the best time you can make so much change. It's so relevant to the topic that we're talking about today. Some from 26-35, that's great as well. Lovely. Very cool. And most of them, I think, come from the delegates. So thank you also for keying this in. Can we have the next question, please? All this is very useful for us, yeah, for the panelists as well, for us to have a sense of how we can talk about what we're going to talk about. Where are you from? That's our next question. Very nice. Cool. Obviously, yes, most of us are scattered across ASEAN, and we have our friends from Republic of Korea as well. So this is a good snapshot of where we are. Let's go to the next question. This is my third and then our last question before we start off the discussion proper. Share with us a little bit about your background, where you're studying or where you're working. Very cool. I see a lot of students, which is amazing, and some really interesting fields that people are in, whether it's applied economics, fitness. I saw some IT, finance. Wonderful. This is a really diverse group that we have here, and I'm so excited for the sort of discussions that we're going to have for the next couple of hours. Again, this whole session is really focused upon sharing stories and insights of success stories, I should say, and insights of how youth can really make a change in this post-pandemic world, and the importance and the power of young people to make this change. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into our panelists and have them share a bit more about what they do. I heard very briefly from them earlier as we were discussing, and I'm sure you've taken a look at some of their profiles as well. These are some really cool things and initiatives that they're doing, and I want to give them some time to talk about that. First off, we have joining us on this panel is Ms. Fayola. Ms. Fayola is the initiator and founder of The Study Friend. Fayola, would you like to do an introduction for yourself, please?
Okay. Hello, everyone. So it is a really great honor for me to speak here. My name is Fayola Maulida. You can call me Fai or Fayola. I'm from Indonesia, currently 17 in my second year of university in Bandung Institute of Technology, studying engineering management. So yeah, currently I'm building my own organization that I've built since 2019 called The Study Friend. So The Study Friend is a youth-led education-focused organization using a peer-to-peer approach where we dedicate to build a safe environment to learn. So what we're doing is we are trying to provide free educational resources for mostly high school students and also people that are going to universities. And then we're trying to make it all of it free so that we can reach a lot of people in Indonesia. And I'm also apparently one of the UNICEF Youth Network members here. Really nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Fayola. Next up, we have Panella, please.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Panella, or you can call me Lat. I'm from Laos. Currently, I'm a master's student studying social infrastructure at Shibuya Institute of Technology in Japan. I joined EYAA in 2018 and the ASEAN Youth Social Journalism Contest in 2019. And I'm very happy and honored to be here. It's my first time to be a speaker surrounded by many youth from ASEAN and Korea. And a little bit about myself, about the foundation that I would like to share. It's not really a foundation, actually. It's kind of like an advocate of volunteering in Laos named HAPO. So one example that I want to share is HAPO, we have created a lot of activities and workshops in Laos, but another big impact we have made is we have a project named Hapasa, which we welcome all the youth from Laos to train the basic of project management skills, and we give them grants to initiate their own projects. So yeah, very happy to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lot. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but Lot is actually out right now, which is why she's wearing a face mask. And so thank you very much, Lot, for still joining us, even though you are out and giving us this time. Finally, rounding off the panel, we have Ving, please.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to join everyone here today in today's panel discussion. My name is Vinh, and I live in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. I'm currently working as a strategic planner at Dancer Redder. It's an advertising agency in Vietnam. While I am completing my final year at RMIT University, Vietnam, and my major is in communication. And my friend normally called me kind of an advertising enthusiast. But I do believe, like, in a way that advertising and commercial, we not only sell products or things or brands, we can also sell changes and transformation. That's why I found Flatten the Plastic Curve is kind of initiative in last year competition by the ASEAN to promote a plastic-free habit among the youngsters of Vietnam during the pandemic happening. So we tried to foster everyone to moving forward a more plastic-free habit in their daily life while maintaining the requirements of social distancing. And in this year, we are working together to kind of expanding the scale of our project beyond the urban areas to more other rural areas in the country, as well as kind of provide communication support for other NPOs and NGOs in the regions, in the countries. Yeah, so that's a bit introduction about me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bing. And as all the introductions have been going on, I'm sure some of you may already have some questions about what they're doing. However, I want to give them more time to do a little bit of a deeper sharing into their initiatives. They've actually taken some time to prepare slides and prepare some sharing that might hopefully be very useful for you if you're thinking about starting your own initiatives, some of the challenges that they may have faced and some of the motivations that really drive them towards that. So we're going to go in the same order. Ms. Fayola, maybe you could start and share with us a bit more about Study Friend, and if you have any slides, maybe put them up.
Okay, really cool. Wait, I'm trying to set it. So am I allowed to share screen here? Oh, nice, yes. Is it visible?
Yes, I can see your slide.
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to try to dive into the organization that I am in right now. So we called our organization TSF, which literally stands off the Study Friend. So this is me in 9th grade. And I was that kid who was really just aiming for straight A's. I really want to get into the top high schools. I really want to get the most out of myself and like academically. And then, but I felt like learning was something that is very painful. It was very stressful. School was very overly competitive, mentally exhausting, unenjoyable, and all of that really bad things. I experienced it when I was in 9th grade. And then it was actually my first time getting all rejections from every single high school that I was in, even though I've already like worked so hard for it. So at that time I thought like, I think something was wrong, right? I don't think like learning should be that painful. I don't think learning should be that stressful. I don't think in my learning process, I should see my friends as competitor, not as friends. I think those kind of mindsets are actually wrong. But this is actually very prevalent in my community, especially in Indonesia. So this is something that I really want to work with. It is actually a problem that is really close to my heart. So yeah, and then TSF was born. I experienced those experiences in 9th grade, which was in like mid 2019. So after that realization, I discussed with my friends, and then we're trying to just settle down what actually the problems us students face every single day. And apparently they're just the same as I am. They think that school can be very hard. They think that learning process can be very harsh for students, even though we're very young. So that is the kind of status quo that we want to flip. And then that's exactly where the Study Friend was born. We dedicate to build a safe environment to learn using peer-to-peer approach. And then we're striving to make quality education accessible and embrace students to learn driven by their curiosities. We want to build people that genuinely interested into the things that they're learning, not only based on like scores or just trying to get all straight A's, but we want to make meaningful relationships with their friends, trying to achieve it together, and then trying to basically build a healthy, supportive community to learn. So yeah, shout out to all TSFM that has helped to make the dreams come true. So what we do, it has been roughly like 2 years-ish since TSF first initially was born. Our main program is called Teman Belajar, which actually translate into the Study Friend in Indonesian. So what we do in Teman Belajar is we're making all free after school peer-to-peer tutoring program with combined reach already 1,000 plus Indonesian high school student, 200 plus actively participated as mentee, mentor all over Indonesia. Once I introduced myself to a student that is actually live like thousands kilometers away from where I am from, like from Jakarta, and that is basically a life-changing experience how the Study Friend has already reached a lot of people. We also growing a supportive learning community server in Discord mainly with 1.6K plus members right now. And not only Teman Belajar itself, we have already made derivatives of that big program called Mini Teman Belajar, and the second teman belajar. So yeah, how TSF has already shaped me. TSF was already given me a lot of realization that actually students can actually build a long-lasting relationships with other students, trying to connect with each other. And then it really gives me a moment of realization that there are so many kind hearts that want to give their knowledge and share their knowledge, that we can actually learn together. It is really nice to see that a lot of people try to champion the same values as TSFR. It has been really inspiring. These are the compilations of the Zoom meetings that we have done. This is from the first Teman Belajar, and we have been very grateful ever since. We're trying to just keep going and doing our best. So thank you so much. That's all from me.
That's amazing. Thank you, Fayola. It's really inspiring stuff. I wrote down a couple of notes. I'd love to explore this later on with you. Next up, we have Lat, please. Lat, would you share with us some of the things about your initiative?
Sure. Sorry again, I've mentioned something that I'm in the university, so it's kind of a bit noisy. So I hope you can hear my voice clearly. So I will be sharing my screen right now. So I hope everyone can see my screen well.
Yes, it looks good. And don't worry about the sound. I think
Yes, thank you. Okay, so a little bit more about my journey. As I'm here, I want to share more about my volunteer journey because it's, I would say it's my life changing, especially the program that I joined, the UIAA program, which stands for Empowering Youth Across ASEAN Countries. And that was my very first volunteer in abroad. I went to Thailand and Cambodia. So at first we joined the training in Thailand, and then we started to initiate our own youth project in Cambodia. So it was quite a long journey, around like 2 weeks. And after that experience and all of those things that I have learned during the UIA program, I was inspired to apply more for other programs and change programs. And finally, I have established HAPO, which is the advocate of volunteering in Laos. So in my personal view, why do I think volunteer is important? Because first, volunteering, it helps to create a sustainable community. Why? Because I believe that if we want to see this change, we need to start doing something that we can't. If we want to be the change, we have to do or take action to the change that we want to see. So basically, it means that we should start from small action as much as possible. And second is it developed the soft skills, especially the teamwork and communication skills, which I believe that these two skills is very important in your career futures or living in the society. So I believe that volunteering really helps to improve the skills. Finally, volunteering can help you to engage more with people who have the similar interested or the same energy. So it's a better networking. And what volunteer has benefited for me? Yeah, of course, soft skills. I used to be a very shy person. I wouldn't be able to, speak in front of many people, even like virtually. But right now, I think I have gained more confidence, and also my communication skills has improved, and a lot of skills actually, especially the empathy skills, thinking of social issues as a whole. And second is about friendship and connection. I think that this is the key thing that I would like to emphasize, because every time that I join volunteer programs, I always have like great connections, and it's very nice that you get to share the energy with people who have like similar interests, and after that you get to build something great together. So that's also how I established HAPO as well, because one of the founder was also like background in a lot of exchange programs and volunteering. So I think I was very lucky to meet those people. And finally, last but not least, is self-awareness. When you get involved in like many people, you also get to reflect yourself, what you're really interested and what really matters to you, which I think that is a guide for your future career, what you want to study, what you want to do. So it starts from volunteering. So basically volunteering is a platform of improving yourself. So this is just like a quick sharing that if you want to be a volunteer, how you could connect to volunteer. So just find the community that keeps sharing these opportunities. So in Laos, we have like Facebook and Instagram. So look out for that source. And second is time management. I believe that students' priority is about studying, but I'm sure that if we could manage our time well, you could also try to get out of your comfort zone and take the initiative to actually do something that you care or try something that you're interested in. And be open-minded and resilient.
No, I think we may have lost your audio. I'm not sure if you're still here. I think we may have lost Lat's audio and connection. Again, she is out at university right now, and so apologies for the background noise and a bit of that. But I think let's move on. And when Lat reconnects, I think we can come back to her with more questions as well. Veng, I have to bring it over to you now to share with us a bit more about your initiative and things that you've been doing.
Yeah. Okay, let me share the screen.
Sorry, I think
it's okay. We've moved to Veng first. So
yes.
We'll come back to you later on. I understand about your connection, so don't worry about it. We'll move on to Veng and then we'll come back to you if that's okay. So sorry about that.
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I come into today's panel discussion with only one image, but I think like this image is kind of speak on the whole about the philosophy of our organizations and why how we think that the role of millennials and Gen Zs can be empowered in a recovery post-pandemic and to leverage the trends of the fourth industrial revolutions. Actually, this image is a very interesting case study in Thailand when the Thai government imposed a ban on plastic bags. When we may think that the people will be pissed off, the people will feel frustrated because they are so familiar with plastic bag. But I see something very interesting in the transformation of the Thai people behaviors that they tend to leverage different items available at home to use it instead of the plastic bag. And they have shown to be very creative and very flexible with their situations. And the whole concept, the whole inspiration from the Thai people is what inspires me to start this organization. And I do think this kind of creativity and disruptive is a unique power of millennials and Gen Z, because the young generations, they are not really following the norms. They are the ones who disrupt the norms. And I believe that this kind of spirit is what we should empower for millennials and Gen Zs to contribute to a recovery after the pandemic. So maybe let's start a bit with the environmental problems in Vietnam and in other regions as well. When we research about how we are communicating and educating the young to do something good for the environment, we find out kind of a fact that we tend to lecture and force the youngsters to follow a certain actions, like you need to do this or you need to do that in order to save the environment. And these are kind of very narrowed and very limited actions available in communication. That's why we think, what if we can take a different approach rather than forcing the youth to do what we think of the best way to protect the environment. We want to inspire them with the consequences and inspire them with the end result. So like for this instance, the end result is to have no plastic bag left and to change to a new habit when you do not use plastic bag. And you can use whatever you want as long as you try to minimize the plastic bag. So instead of forcing them to use something else that we think the best, we inspire them and really empower them to be creative in their own way, to change from plastic bag to another kind of coverage and wrapping. And that's all about our concept and our philosophy of working. And in other area and spectrum is the same. When we do a campaign in promoting to end the use of plastic straw, we also use the same method. Instead of like forcing them to end using plastic straw, we empower them and inspire the youth to be creative. And let's find something else that you can replace for the plastic straws. You can bring along your spoon, you can bring along your metal straw, or you can invent something else in your own creativity. And I believe that it is the millennials and the Gen Zs who has this kind of disruptive mindset, who can really disrupt the norms, the normal way of thinking, to really find a very disruptive solutions to these environmental problems. Because we have tried to solve these environmental problems for many, many long times. And we think that we are thinking in very traditional ways, and empower the youngsters, the youth, maybe a very clever way that we can leverage their power, their enthusiasms, and their motivations to really contribute to the environment. Because in our societies, the kind of rebellious one, they are usually stereotyped as not the normal one, not the traditional ones where you should follow the norms. But rather than kind of forcing them and stereotyping them, we empower them to take their own way of protecting the environment. So embrace their individualities and embrace their own unique creativities. That's what that is really our philosophy of working, and what we're trying to inspire other NPOs and NGOs also in our collaborations with them, to really make the youth, the millennials and Gen Zs at the center of this transformation. We need to allow them more voice, and not only the traditional youngsters, but maybe involve the rebellious youngsters, the under-involved youngsters to be engaged, because they are a very critical part of the populations. Yeah. So instead of following a traditional way, a traditional route to protect the environment in traditional ways, we tend to target the under-targeted segmentations, the under-targeted youth, those who are not really involved in traditional media, so are a bit rebellious or a bit out of traditions. But when engaged with them, we do feel that they inside, they have a passion for environment also, but they are not kind of recognized. And if we can leverage the whole population of the youth, it will be a giant source of power to together solve these issues. Yeah. So I think that is the message that I want to share with everyone in today's panel discussions, and I think it is applicable to every other aspect in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, whether we work in education, whether we work in mental health or other problems. I do believe that to engage every different groups of youngsters are important, and to really empower their own unique mindsets rather than forcing them to go in a certain way will be better. To really, when we have many more perspectives, we can really leverage their behaviors, their mindsets, their powers. Yeah. So that is the message that I really want to send to you guys in today's discussion. Yeah. Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you, Ving. This is all really inspiring stuff, because you're talking not about youths who have to actually start an organization or initiative, but in their own capacity and in their own circles, they can already make that change, which is amazing. I want to dive right into what we're talking about here, which is when we're thinking about a post-pandemic world, the world effectively has changed, and I think what it has revealed to us is how everyone can play a part. Millennials and Gen Z in particular, Veng, you've mentioned this about how we can leverage on their creativity, that they are not people who want to follow the norm, that they're very willing to disrupt it, and how we can leverage on that, bank on that to make the change. I want to go over to Fayola, because Fayola's story about TSF is really inspiring, especially that you started this about 2 years ago, right when we were in a very crazy time of COVID. Tell us a bit more about your motivation? What made you feel like you wanted to expand this beyond just what you were doing? Because you shared about your struggles in studying, but how did you know that there were other people like you, and what was the first steps you took towards discovering that, hey, we could do this, we could run this as a giant collective? What was that motivation?
Actually, it was through a lot of conversations that occurs with my friends and me, but what we are doing gets really urgent when it comes to pandemic, because there's something called learning loss within people, within like students. Even when I first founded it, I was in high school, and then I'm actually the student that goes through that. So as a person that actually goes through the struggle, I think that most people and then most students that are upon my community going through the same problem. Hence, it gets really urgent inside this pandemic setting. But what makes it really hard is that how to actually take the first step, right? So how did we take the first step? First step is that I gathered my friends, so it was not me alone. It was the 5 of us. So when we first built our first peer-to-peer tutoring program, it was just 5 of us, but it was enough to basically try to tell the world that we are trying to make something. And then I think the first step that you have to take if you are trying to make this kind of initiative or organization is try to invite people that are within your community first, trying to tell them what you're trying to do. And then most likely, if they feel the same problem, if they feel like they relate to you, they will do their best to also work inside your programs and initiatives. And that is exactly what I did back then. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
That's very cool. I actually have a couple more questions, but we'll get to that because the hard-hitting questions will come later. I can see that there might be some challenges, and I have some wonder about that. But when we talk about getting youth action in, I think, Lat, you have a great story there. I know we had to cut short a little bit, but when you talk about volunteering and being inspired to volunteer, I noticed that you talked a lot about the friendship and connection. So Fayola mentioned that she has a huge community, and I wonder about your end as well. The volunteers that you've met from other countries, or volunteers that you've been able to network with and maybe share ideas and exchange thoughts about more impact that you can make. Tell us a bit more about this. What's been perhaps the most inspiring story of friendship and connection that you might have from all of your experiences volunteering?
That's a really great question, Tim. Thank you. Yeah, so I think, like Fayola said, that when you have the project that you're interested to do, find someone you could share with, because you will not know that someone else is also having similar ideas, which that's how you really get to, find a team. So that's also how I group up my team to initiate Hubble as well. So I think volunteering is a really great platform for youth to find this network. That's why that after the EYAA program, I wanted to initiate and empower more youth, especially in my country, to understand the importance and to contribute in volunteer activities as much as possible, because I believe that volunteering, it's not just helping us to better understand the social issues in our community, but also help us to be more self-awareness, knowing what we're interested, knowing what we care, knowing what matters to us and to our community. So that's how you really get to shape your perspective and also know what you want to do in the future. So in short, it's all about getting yourself out of the comfort zone. If you see the opportunity, just take it. Don't think of perfection, and also don't worry about mistakes, because we all have it, especially when you're young. So just go for it. Yeah, thank you.
That's lovely. Something you mentioned that I really want to emphasize on is how you've been able to take those lessons back to the youth in your own country. That is something so powerful. I think all of us here representing different countries of ASEAN and Korea can think about, because these experiences, the program that our delegates are embarking on and we'll be meeting in next week, to make these real friendships and connections together, these can really be brought back home to your own home countries and spreading it with your own community back in your local setting. So I think this is amazing, really, really worth emphasizing. I want to give a quick prompt to all our attendees and delegates to throw in some questions into the chat box, and then we'll get to them when we can see your questions. But just creating a little bit more time for more questions to come in. Vâng, when you talked about that unique power of disrupting the norm, I'm curious to think, because earlier we were talking before this whole thing started that you like advertising and sort of the space of media and advertising. The beauty of advertising that if we take away the commercial aspects of it, is that it can really change minds. It can really do some amazing things to influence people. Media has such a powerful role to play, and I think advertising does that too. Is that part of this superpower that you're also excited about? And how have you been leveraging this interest of yours, especially as you're the winner of the journalism contest, leveraging this power to make change in your own area?
Yeah, well, I think, as I've said, really the media has a very powerful force in these days, especially because recently I started to research different mediums that the youth is engaged with the most. Then we find out like they're engaged a lot in the gaming areas, they engage a lot in TikTok, Instagrams. So that is where the youngsters are living in today's world. So really it's to find them at the right touch point, at the right place, and deliver to them the right message can impact on them very powerfully to change the behaviors and to help them realize some problems that we really want. So get an understanding of where our audience, where the youth is living, where the youth is engaging, and what is their favorite interests and topics of discussions is, as for an advertiser, is important and necessary to really deliver the right message to them at the right time and in the right place. That's why I really engage in, and when you can activate an understanding and turn that into an actionable solutions for the youth is very exciting. When you can find, like, because how can I say, as an advertiser, we need to deep dive to understand what is the underlying motivation of the audience, of the youth, when they are doing certain actions. And when we really find out that underlying layer, we can really change their behaviors. And one part that I think that we have not made enough efforts is that people only see the surface of youth behaviors and activities. That's why they don't see the power behind them. And sometimes the youth appear as rebellious and a bit stereotyped. That's why when we talk with them and engage with them, then we find out that those rebellious people are very passionate for environment, an aspect that we may not recognize at the first sight because of the surface appearance. So really to engage, talk with them and find out the underlying motivations that no one recognizes and really activate them into a powerful message is, I believe, is really the recipe to change the behaviors and make the youngsters can become a major force in protecting the environment and in other aspects as well. Yeah, it's really about engage and to have a very deep discussion with them.
Great stuff. No, you're absolutely right. I think in my day job, we work with young people in Singapore, and I think in Singapore we're very privileged. So we don't have to worry about a lot of things. And so when we think about education, what we really want, the plug that we want to put in and to close the gap is actually to help more young people feel like they have a say in making change. And I think that's something that you have really touched on that's so real, and that young people all across ASEAN and in Korea have been able to take the tragedy, the disaster of a pandemic, but really turn it into something that's wonderful. Fayola, I want to come back to TSF because this is exactly what I'm talking about, where something horrible like COVID could really turn out to be almost an opportunity for how you've been able to start a community like the Study Friend. I was actually wondering, because it's a digital community, have you had or faced issues with places or areas that might be a bit more rural, might not have good connection, or maybe might not even have the devices to help them connect? Has there been this sort of difficulty?
Thank you so much for the question. And the answer is yes. So when we first built our first Teman Belajar, our first program, so our main platform was Discord. And then because we think that it is going to be more simple, it is going to be more compact. But apparently there are some people who has difficulties to access that application in the first place. Some people get disconnected in the middle of the learning process, and etc. So that is exactly the problem that we faced when we first tried to build the program. So what we have learned is that try to make it as simple as possible. It's okay to experiment, like trying different platforms, for example, but trying to make it as simple as possible. It is actually, I would think, the key to connectivity, the key to make it more inclusive to a lot of people, especially in Indonesia. So we are trying to reconstruct it, and then we finally come up with a different approach in our second Teman Belajar, and then it makes it more easier for people to access our programs at the end of the day. Thank you.
Lovely. The thing that I found really powerful with your story is how you were able to democratize almost education, because by bringing peer-to-peer to different places and all across your country, this is something that even if someone does not have access in a traditional sense of education, because they've access to this community, this makes it so powerful. We have a couple of questions here, and I would like our panelists to take a look at the first question there, because it's to all three of you. But Fayola, if I can put you on the spot again, because since we're talking about TSF, let's just go straight to the second one and write on that. How did you utilize network building as a fundamental recipe for building your organization? This is by Franklin from Philippines. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you so much for the question, Franklin. So TSF really championed peer-to-peer education system, in which that it is something that I believe in the first place. I learned a lot from my friends. So with my story that I was too competitive and then I saw my friends as a rival, those experiences has already shaped me into building TSF to be students to students organizations that has that approach. So how to utilize network building in the first place is that try to connect the community, make your community feel like they belong in there. So when I first built TSF, people have the same exact value. We all want to learn. We all are curious, right? So that is exactly what keeps us connected. That is exactly how we built network in the first place. So we are trying to utilize those kind of same end goals, which is to learn, to make people feel connected to each other, and eventually can approach that goal, can reach that goal with more people that are supporting them. So that is exactly what value that is exactly the value that TSF trying to champion. You are going to work for your goal, but you are never going to be alone. You are going to be in a very safe community to learn along the way. That is exactly what we are trying to do. I hope that that answers your question. Thank you so much.
Lovely, I think it does. Let's move to that question that went out for all three panelists, and I'll just read it out again. Panelists, if you are given all the assistance and opportunities that you needed, also the support financially and whatnot, what else could you do or contribute more towards youth or society? Maybe let's start with Veng, if that's okay.
Can you repeat the final part of the questions?
So if you were given all the resources, but potentially imagine if someone came to you and said, tell me what you need, I'll give you everything. What do you think you could do more or contribute to youth or to society a lot more?
Well, that's a very big question, given that I can have everything I want. Okay, let me think a bit, because well, let's put it this way. Because I think like all the materials and other resources are very important, but I do believe that when we're trying to fostering something, it's the human that matters more than the facilities or the financial capabilities. If we like those things, we can striving and we can ask for more. But what we need the most is to have real human interactions and connections, and to really sit down and listen. So if I have more resources, I hope to engage more with NPO and NGOs in my countries and hopefully the regions. Because I noticed one thing, that for the NPO and NGOs, they are an expert in the area they are working, but somehow they are not an expert in communication. So they quite fight and struggles to raise funds or to communicate out to the public what they are doing. So I hope to bring our practices and what we are doing and learning and sharing with them. If we can have a platform to engage that and kind of have connections among those NPO and NGOs to share and learn from each other, it will be much, much better. Yeah.
That's lovely. And absolutely right. Humans matter way more than just the resources. Lat, what do you think about this question? If you had all the support that you needed, what would you do?
I kind of agree with Win actually about human resource is the key elements in improving a community, because this kind of project that we're having, including this dialogue and the programs that I have joined, I think all of this stuff, it really matters for building the youth perspective, which the perspective that I meant by is the growth mindset. I think having a growth mindset is the key to changing the community. So with a strong mindset, with a good mindset of people, then we can initiate a lot of great projects together. So if I would have the support in terms of financial, I would like to initiate more exchange programs like this, not just only for among ASEAN countries, but also for Korea as well, and also for other partner countries as well, because I think that the more that we could interact with each other and sharing the stories about what's our concern in our country, I think we could build a stronger solution to impact not just only in our country, but globally. So I would like to encourage more youth exchange programs, and also I want those youth who join the programs to really have the fund to initiate what they have learned from the project. So it's basically training the young trainees to be the young leaders and giving them some amount of money for them to really take the action from what they have discussed during the exchange programs. Yeah.
Great stuff. And catalyzing that and spreading that is so important. There's only, if we ourselves make our own change, it's only a small thing. But if we go on to fund more young people, I think that will make so much more change. We have a question here that's quite related. That's about finance, and I think that the idea about this is, as you're running your initiatives and potentially some of the delegates are also running some of their own youth initiatives and organizations, this is a perennial issue, and in all charity or nonprofit setting, fundraising is such an important thing because you need to sustain, right? People can't keep doing things for free. So what is the challenge that you currently face with regards to keeping yourselves financially sustainable, especially if you feel like, I can't charge my youth. Maybe Fayola, you can't charge your people for attending the Discord or the Zoom sessions. How do you think you can keep afloat? What have you done? Maybe are there some examples that you might have about how you've been able to fundraise? Fayola, maybe you can kick us off there.
Okay, yes, this is actually a major problem, especially when you're doing things like non-profitly, exactly what TSF are doing. So fun fact, we have been doing TSF with zero money in a sense that we are still students. We are doing it out of our own resources in a sense that we use our own Zoom meetings. We use all of the speakers that we are inviting, for example, it is all pro bono. They are attending our events for free. And our program, which is the Teman Belajar ones, the mentors are not paid. They are also doing it voluntarily. And apparently, there are actually some channels in order for you to gain money or like fundraise, which are to apply for grant. There are a lot of grant that, let's say from like big organizations or foundations, there are like call for applications and etc. We are trying to do that. We are trying to apply for those things, and then yeah. But for now on, like for as of right now, we are currently not are not for profit, and we are actually operating with zero money, if I would say so. Yeah, really interesting.
Great. Well, right now you're operating with zero finance, but I wonder if, as you scale, there might be more needs along the way. I know that there are some initiatives who maybe even come to the point of hiring a staff because they've now reached so many people that they need a full-time staff to handle this. Have you ever given that any thought about, if you come to that, what would you do?
Yes, exactly. So TSF has already applied for grants. TSF has already also tried to get into like incubation programs so that we can scale up. That is exactly the efforts that we're trying to give on. And apparently TSF is also my first organization. I'm actually freestyling when I first trying to build TSF. So I'm also still learning along the way, not only me and myself, but also with my friends who are trying to open up a lot of financial channels, trying to discover a lot of things that we can do. We are actually very aware of that problem, and then we're actually in the process.
Lovely. Lat, can you tell me a bit more about Hubble then? Does Hubble raise funds? When you founded Hubble and thinking about all the work that you do you raise funds, or how do you keep yourselves financially sustainable?
So our journey also starts from grants as well. So after the exchange program, we got some small grants from the exchange program, and after that, we also applied for other grants as well. There was like a couple of grants that we received, and we would say that since 2019 until now, our operation was not for profit. So all of the workshop activities, projects, and grants that we also give for the youth to really initiate their own project was from the grants that we applied as well. So this is also our concern in the future, because we also know that we couldn't only rely from the grants or the donors for a long time. So we're also in the process of thinking of other activities that we could transform Hubble as a educational business. So it's more on like social enterprise. So we wanted to have like a hub that could invite young people to train the soft skills, because most of the schools in Laos, we're more on the technical skills, or there's like less of where you can train your soft skills. So what we want to do is we want to initiate the soft skills academy, and we are still thinking of how we could earn some revenue from that. But so far we also get some sponsors who are also interested in our community as well. So I think getting sponsors is also important, because seeking for partners, cooperation, because there's also a lot of organization that is willing to support you. So as Fayola also mentioned that you have to explore more in your community, because I believe that it's about communication and about networking. Yeah, thank you.
That's amazing. I like that you mentioned that, just sponsors. So in Singapore, when in the work that we do at Halogen, we've been running for 19, coming 20 years of a charity, And what we found is everyone could start off with grants. Grants is the first step for you. But subsequently, I think what you could do if you're thinking about sustaining yourselves on the long term, companies, many companies, especially the large companies, have funds set aside for corporate responsibility. And if your initiative is very aligned to their corporate responsibility goals, then all it takes actually is finding those companies and pitching to them and saying, we serve the same purpose and we would like to maybe help you achieve your goals as well through the work that we do at our youth organization. And perhaps they could not just sponsor you, but even provide strategic partnership, which I think is way more powerful than just money. Because if you have a company coming in strategically with their staff being volunteers with you or with their executives, helping to coach and guide you in running the organization, this is a very powerful thing, which I think everyone can leverage on. Veng, I just would like you to round off this question for me, because I really like what you've mentioned about the unique power of youth. So if just in 2 or 3 lines, if you can, have you seen any innovative or creative ways that youth has been able to raise funds, whether it could be for the plastic initiatives that you've been thinking about, or maybe something you've seen elsewhere, something that's creative, something very quick, maybe 3 to 4 lines, if possible.
Yeah. I think when we work alone, it's very tough, but when it comes to finance, we take a collaborative approach. So when we want to deliver a campaign or something to promote a plastic-free habit, instead of just doing alone and raising funds alone, we bring our proposal to brands that we believe that is seeing the same eyes and the same vision with us, and pitching to them and invite them to be the sponsor for us in this campaign. So in a way, we are selling ideas to brands who have the finance to support, instead of for the brands to think of their own. So we provide something that is valuable and creative, and the brands take it. And that's how we are going to get financial support, by selling ideas and for brands to support. Yeah, that's the way we're working.
Lovely. Thank you for the nice roundup. I do think that this is a very big topic. We can spend forever talking about this, especially as we all want to make change, and we all know the resource is limited. But I think that the delegates will have more time to discuss this along the way. And let's move on to the next question, which was also previewed a little bit earlier on by Su-Yun Kim, who mentioned about the importance of digitalization, and how different places are digitizing not just the industries, but almost the entire country. The gap of digitalization is actually a very real thing. We don't just talk about this happening in the rural areas, but also in urban areas, because there is urban poverty, there is urban lack in many places, and as many of the young people that we know in our own communities face this. We touched briefly upon this. Fayola did talk a bit about this earlier, but I wanted to hear also from Lat and Veng. How do you think we can close this gap? Especially, and I'm going to throw in a new context here. Countries like Korea and Singapore, we have a very wide digital penetration. Can we also bring in this shared learning from different countries? What do you think we can do to leverage and close this ICT gap when we're making friends across different countries? Maybe Lat, you could kick us off. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that's also a good question to understand the uniqueness of ASEAN and Korea cooperation as well, because we know that Singapore is very advanced in ICT, and also Korea, and with this kind of exchange programs or conference that we could partner more and more in the future, I strongly believe that young people could initiate something that not just benefiting the people who get to join, but also people who doesn't get to join. So what I mean is that we're spreading the opportunities wider to the local people in our country. So I think the advantage of this partnership is that we are diverse. So we could also share what other developed countries is like as well. So this kind of like sharing knowledge and sharing culture, it is what I believe that it could help create a innovative projects or even innovative startups. So I believe that in the long term, we could have like a win-win situation, and the more that we support young generations who are the majority of the population in ASEAN countries, I think that this is like the first investment that we could do for now. And I strongly support this kind of activities that we're having, such as this dialogue as well.
Amazing stuff. Vâng, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this topic in a few days, because recently I did some research about Korea, and Korea is a very interesting case, because South Korea kind of they start from a war wounds after the war, and they're moving from a developing countries, and now South Korea is a developed country, and I'm quite curious about how they are digitalizing their nations, because when I watch K-dramas, even like the elderly, they can use smartphone very cleverly, and that's really triggers me and make me curious. How can the government? What is the policy behind, or are there some initiative that I would really like to see? And maybe it will be nice for the South Korea to pioneer in sharing of those best practices from their countries to the ASEAN nations. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've revealed a thing about all of us in ASEAN, our guilty pleasures, watching K-dramas and watching how good their whole setting is. No, I fully agree. I think a big part of the digitalization gap is actually the generation age gap. You know, how young people are able to help the elderly move with the times, you know, use more of the smartphones, the apps to help them in their day-to-day lives. I've seen a lot of good examples from this, and I think all across the different countries, this has been very inspiring to see how we are moving and progressing our country that way. We're only left with about 10 more minutes, so this has been such a fruitful and exciting discussion for me. Time really flies. I just want to do a quick round off. And maybe ask our three panelists to share one last thing for all of our delegates here. There was one question up there from, I think, Mohaiza from Malaysia, who asked about getting commitment and willingness from your volunteers or from people whom you're engaging. Let's round off with that, because I think when we talk about making change in a post-pandemic era, the thing about youth is that we feel like we can do everything. We feel like we have a lot of time. I want to try this, I want to try that, I want to do everything. And the problem with, while that's very good, the problem with that is if you say yes to too many things, you can't commit to all of them. You have only a set amount of time. Everyone has 24 hours in a day. How would you, or what advice would you have to our delegates or attendees to keep our young volunteers, our young people that we serve, keep them committed and willing to participate in the change that you're making? Fayola, maybe you could kick us off. How do you get the community of TSF to be so committed to constantly turn up? What do you do?
I would say that the answer is a sense of belonging and relatability to the problem that you are trying to solve. When I first started TSF, it is actually the problem that I faced. And as time goes, it is actually a problem that a lot of people face, right? So given the urgency of the problem in the very first place, it gives us the kind of fire to keep going. And I would say that is exactly what keeps us committed. And secondly, when you're building a program, when you're building, in my case, which is Teman Belajar, that program, it really is inspiring to see a lot of people believes in what you're doing. So I would say that the involvement of the community that you are engaging in is something that keeps the fire going. So try to innovate, try to experiment like inside your organization, build a strong community, and then you will see that, oh, these people are actually the people that I'm comfortable with, and hence you really want to innovate and eventually commit to what initiative that you are starting in the first place. I would say like that.
Great stuff. Vem, any thoughts?
I feel very relatable with these questions because I did join a few programs and get overwhelmed sometimes. But I think like a critical thing that we need to bear in mind in order to always keep committed is to have regular self-reflections. After joining different programs, as I say, we need self-reflections to see what is we are doing best or what is really our passion for. Self-reflection will help us a lot to see where is our priority and where is going wrong, where is going right, for us to keep moving on and choose the right directions that we are going. So like to constantly reflect on what you are doing and don't doing it like playfully, I believe is very important. Yeah.
Awesome. And Lat, please round us off.
Yes. So if I would like to share about the post-pandemic, I would say this is a really major time for all of us to reflect ourselves, be more critical, and to think of what we can do better. So yeah, I think there's a lot of disadvantage, but at the same time, there's also advantage in this pandemic as well. And I think it's the time for us to be more resilient in what we're doing. And I think what I would like to share to other young people is that keep being curious, be hungry for knowledge, for experience, and try to learn from practical things as much as possible, and especially joining exchange programs or volunteering. I really highly recommend volunteering because that's how you really kick off out of your comfort zone, and you also get to meet more people that you could also build some organization or foundation that you're interested in. So yeah, that's all from me.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us this morning. If you allow me, I wrote down quite a number of notes here that allow me to summarize our discussions. We talked a bit about finance and how we can, there are different ways to raise funds. Lat mentioned that there is a soft skills academy that she's thinking about, getting sponsors, getting partnerships. I think that's all really smart ways for you to raise funds to sustain your initiative. When we talk about what we could do for others, it's not just about taking funds for ourselves, but also that we know change can be made when we fund others, when we support other youth within our communities and within our networks to help them make change. So be a catalyst, help other people, serve more of these other initiatives and causes as well. Lana mentioned something earlier on about being inspired to apply for more programs, daring to put herself out there. And I think this is a great takeaway for many of our delegates and attendees as well. You're in this program now, which is a wonderful privilege, but go for more of them, because when you dare to apply for more of them and dare to put yourself out there, make friends, make more connections, I think you're able to make more change in that way. We have also thoughts about building a sense of belonging and meaning and purpose in the people that you are reaching out to. Align yourselves with what other people want to achieve. What are their purposes and objectives in making change in their community? Align yourself there, build in people a sense of community and a sense of togetherness. One of the things that was mentioned, we talked about, was the unique power of people, of humans, that is way more strong, much stronger than just having resources, materials, and finances. And that is why I think that's so beautiful, is because that's something all of us already have. We can leverage on the power of people and the power of youth that we have in our own networks now to make that change. And if I may round this off with a last thing, which is how do we manage the energy to commit to different things? It's not just about managing time, but about our own energy and the energy of others, that we can help rally and manage together. That when we want to solve and serve different areas, we know that we have to commit to that quite differently according to their needs and their structures. So that is all we have. Thank you so much. I have one last Mentimeter question, which is really a feedback question. And if that could come up right now, this will be the last thing we talked about. For this panel, what is the most interesting that you think that you have learned? Head over to menti.com and key in that code. And we'd love to see some of your thoughts right here. And to the attendees and delegates, thank you for some really good questions. I apologize if we're not able to get to all the questions, but feel free to look for us on LinkedIn, or if the organizers could share some of our contact details, we're very happy to do that as well. Thank you for your answers on Mentiers. With that, it is now 12. It is now at the end of our session. Thank you so much for your participation, for your time, and please join me in giving a virtual round of applause to our three panelists. This is such an inspiring time, inspiring morning. Thank you all. And we'll see you hopefully soon.
Youth delegates, once again, please join me in thanking also Fayola, Vong, Lat, and of course Tim for the very engaging discussion today. I hope the insights shared are inspiring and useful in your respective contexts and fields of interest. We will now adjourn for a 2-hour break and resume our program at 1 p.m. Jakarta time. Have a nice lunch.